This band was one of the first to be labeled emo for its expressive music and lyrics.
Everyone, just like everyone.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Brayton and welcome to WatchMojo.com. And today we're speaking with Chris Carrabba from Confessional to learn more about the band and what emo means to him.
But I'd like to see you on.
So why don't we start, as we often do, by having you tell us the origin story of Confessional.
Well, it's pretty simple. I just was messing around with my acoustic guitar in my living room, and I accidentally wrote a record, and I recorded it that way. I did that a couple of times, so the first couple records were just me and an acoustic guitar. There wasn't a band or anything like that. And then over the course of the years of touring that way, I would make friends in different bands and say, well, that's a great guitar player. If I ever have another guitar player, I gotta remember that kid, that kind of thing. We tacked a band together after a couple of years of traveling like that.
Man will be by all your lines.
And what kind of music did you grow up listening to?
My music fandom is kind of broad, My exposure to it was pretty broad too, because my mom was into this kind of stuff, my brother was into this kind of stuff, and there was music everywhere. A lot of Bruce Springsteen, a lot of Bon Jovi, and also then I got into a lot of punk rock in my tweens, although they didn't call it tweens then. And that stayed with me pretty hard. I followed all these different kinds of music as just a passive fan, and then also as a musician, trying to deconstruct them in my mind, and they stay with me. It's amazing how you find yourself listening to records you listened to when you were 10, and they still are as meaningful as records that just hit you like yesterday,
Breathe in for luck, breathe in so deep.
If someone had a gun to your head, how would you describe or label your music?
I would just say singer-songwriter. That seems to be the right name for it. But, they call us emo. They've called us that for a long time. When they started calling us that, it was not negative. That it started out as a thing that was exciting and maybe new to most people. And they applied it to all these bands that didn't kind of sound anything the same. I didn't think it was an appropriate name in terms of being able to group us together, but it stuck for all of us. And, as the cycles of new bands came out, they did kind of sound more and more like each other. And so now when you say emo, there's a kind of a clearer picture than that generation of bands that I'm from. But it's like, I said this earlier, it's like the term hipster recently was very cool and is now like an insult. That's what happened with grunge, and that's what happened with emo.
When we realize it's so late at this walk that we share together.
I wanted to ask you, what is emo to you?
People think or assume, because it was said in print this way, that my generation of bands that I'm from, we were the originators of this scene. But the term predates us by probably 10 years, which is why I thought it was inaccurate early. I thought it was just a term floating around, and they had all these new bands to write about, and they didn't know what to call them. Because we were the alternative to what was on the radio at the time, which were things, if I remember, like Limp Bizkit. Alternative as a term was taken and misappropriated eventually, which I think is what happened with emo. They appropriated it for what we were, and then it was misappropriated later for what would come out of the next few cycles of bands. And there's some great bands that came out of that. My Chemical Romance is one of my favorite bands. I think Fall Out Boy was a great band, and I think it became really popular to not like them for a minute or maybe take shots at them, but I think that good songwriting will show that they will be an important thing when they're no longer in tabloids or whatever. Their songs are still good.
Man, I hope they buy all your.
The audience is quite varied. Who do you think listens to Confessional?
This is what I think. I think it's everybody in terms of like social groups, genders, races, ages, but it is the niche within all those demographics seem to gravitate towards what I do, which is different from other bands I've been in, which it was specific to a scene, where this is more the fringe of everybody else's scenes sort of kind of fit together.